Alia, are you here?
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
Hi, so I think we can start. We do seem to have a good number of participants today. So, very good morning to all. My name is Architect Tushar Mandal, and I'm a teaching faculty at the Peria School of Architecture, New Delhi. I welcome you all to the 40th webinar in the Every Friday webinar series, a platform for young minds to express their ideas. Today's webinar also marks the first time that the students of a school have joined the session. So, I also welcome the students. Today's webinar will be exploring architecture in the techno-creative industry, and we will be presented by Ms. Aaliya. To quickly introduce the speaker, Aaliya is an architect and lifestyle designer who will soon be turning into a manager as she is currently pursuing her master's in business administration. She has done her bachelor's in architecture from Jamia Millia Islamia and was working as a design manager in the event industry, working on projects such as the projection mapping on the PM Museum and the PwC hybrid event called the Talent Tax. She likes to overlap the two dimensions. She likes to overlap two different dimensions to achieve creativity. Today, she will be speaking about the presence of architecture in the techno-creative industry. So I request Alia to now begin the presentation. And it's a request to all the participants to keep themselves muted for the duration of the presentation. Once the presentation is over, we will open the floor for question and answers.
Thank you, Tushar. A very good morning to all of you. And I'm really glad that all of you are here for this webinar. And I'll try and do a justice to the 1 hour that I have been assigned. Thank you again, Tushar, for the kind introduction as well. We'll just quickly, jump into the presentation, which talks about architecture in techno-creative industry. And even before that, we'll probably go and discuss a little bit about what exactly techno-creative means and how it is, sort of associated with the world of architecture that we all sort of belong to. Just a second. So the overview of the entire presentation would be like, we'll be discussing a little bit about event industry as well, because techno-creative comes probably inside the event industry umbrella. The second thing we're discussing would be technology and spatial understanding. This is again like an overlap between architecture as well as the event and the techno-creative industry, immersive experiences, and last but not the least, we have designs and compositions. Moving on, the big question of the day, what is techno-creative? So the two words as it is describe the entire entity to it. It has a lot of technology and it has to be creative, and it keeps on changing and evolving the time, at the time we are speaking, because just like a technological industry keeps on upgrading day by day, you could say techno-creative industry also gets upgraded. Your client, your audience would not want to see the same thing again and again. So for the audience to, give something out of the box, to give a new idea, you have to keep coming up with new kind of, creative ideas, something that they have, never seen before, visual spectacles, and of course, take it up a notch and make it interactive so that people can, touch and feel that technology. And because anyways, we are doing that these days. So the few topics that we'll be covering within the techno-creatives would be projection mapping, interactive experiences that have happened and are already happening around the world. Next, you will have the dome projection as well. So this is also a good example of a techno-creative industry. We have all seen dome projection, but in, like observatories and stuff like that. But you have properly like made architectural dome. So the structure that you are trying to make a dome projection is has to incorporate those technical demands that the project requires, and then you make like a seating capacity for that much, what the view angle would be, and all those precise details that go along with that. So all in all, I mean, pretty basic, just like I said, techno-creative, just combine these two words. And if you have like a good control over the technology, and if you have a good control, so basically you can't control creativity, but like if you have like a good understanding of creativity, this is just the field for you to explore, especially encountering in the new students who have joined for the first time, as I was informed, and people who are constantly looking for something that sort of derives out of architecture, but probably is not core architecture. And those who have like an upper hand towards that angle, maybe you guys can try like an internship here and there. And if you like the field, you can go ahead with it as well. So do like, give it a thought about it. Moving on, we'll talk a little about the event industry. So as students of architecture, I also remember that we used to see those award nights, and we used to see those giant stages and glamour and glitter all around. But while we were studying architecture, we never knew, at least like my personal anecdote, that I never knew that the execution of all those projects and the making and execution of all those projects required a lot of what we studied. And somebody who really understands space, somebody who's really conscious of the sciences of architecture would be great at doing that. And if you have of course like a sense of aesthetic along with it. So the event industry, just in short, I have just mentioned some pointers. Like, it's constantly active 24/7. You will be constantly getting briefs on a very short notice, and then you will have to quickly churn out an idea within a given time frame, get the idea approved, and then gets it going to execute that idea as well. So for somebody who worked on a thesis project and then worked and on a live project which expanded for more than a year or so, you don't really get to see what you designed that quick. So it gets very overwhelming. It was for me. You will feel a bit overwhelmed by the idea that yesterday only you were making renders for the particular design, and within 72 hours the entire structure is standing in a area for the event to happen. So like, it's constantly crazy how much ideas and efforts and discipline that goes into execution of a project within this shorter period of time. The event industry requires nothing but your passion and innovation at every point of time. It will also include your interesting spatial arrangements, experiences, and out-of-box creativity. At the end of the day, what you're required to do is create a visual spectacle which generates an emotional stir within the audience that has been a part of the event. So you don't necessarily remember an event by something grand that you have done, like the size of the stage or the amount of lights that you have put or the kind of music that you have played, but the kind of emotional feeling that it leaves you with. And you are sort of like, a year later or 6 months later, you are reminiscing and remembering about that particular time, and you remember it with the emotion that you felt joy, you felt grand, you felt great. So these are the things that we try to deliver, rather than making it look bigger on picture and on screens. The usual idea is to create that emotional stir within our the customer that is at the end of it, the audience, you could say. And it could be of different types, so it gets challenging at some point of time, that you have like a different set of, for example, if your client is government, and if your client is a corporate office, so they will have two very different set of requirements and two very different set of audiences, and you just have to cater it to the exact need and desire for them. And beyond that, to be honest, like, you will have to understand that what will go better with this, even if they're not asking for it. You will have to suggest the idea to them. And all these conversations sort of recalls what all we studied during our architecture tenure, that always try and learn from your client, and always try and educate your client in a very polite manner, but try and let them know what is good for them and what will go better, rather than just doing an odd job, like whatever they are saying. So given that, I'd quickly like to mention about the Event and Entertainment Management Association that is called EMA. And I learned about this when I started working in this industry. It's been some 14 months that I have worked for the event industry. And I had like my own pathway to it. I started like an architect. I started doing the designs on the AutoCAD and layouts and the basic stuff. And then eventually you learn the craft of visualization. I won't say that I've mastered it. I'm just like still a learner in the process. But yes, I could do like the 2 and 2 together. I can picture what has not happened in an empty wall. And I think pretty much all the architects can do that. Really feel strongly about it. So this association that I was talking about, EMA, people don't know about it much. I would request all the young people, or maybe those who don't know about it, people you can go and check it out. And you have certain guidance and rules regarding that. And we especially have a lot of perks and opportunities in this association. So it will be really helpful. Moving on. When discussing about events, just like I said, there are multiple type of events. There are multiple type of audiences that you have to cater to and treat, and all of your executional ideas and themes and topics and everything has to revolve around the brief that they give you. And sometimes they will ask you to generate a brief as well. To be honest. So the 3 types of major events that we see are categorized as corporate events, government events that happen, and then there are personal events. So I don't actually have a lot of experience on the personal events because we did not do any and I could not get to experience any. But I'm guessing that weddings and the parties and presidential level parties, etc., come inside those. Today we'll be discussing about the corporate events and the government events. Moving on, these are some of the pictures that I have put here, but I'll quickly just take time and explain what all these are. So the first picture that we see here is of a stadium where they have arranged a corporate dinner kind of thing. So corporate offices, big conglomerates, they have this, we don't know this, but all around the year they have events happening back to back, and they need people who can execute those and make it memorable for them. So these are not that large of an event which are telecasted on television or something, but yes, they do hit the YouTube channels and their own websites, etc. So they invest a lot of money, they invest a lot of time, and they invest a lot of energy in execution of these projects depending on the scale again. So they want it to be jazzed up because it is once in a year thing. Like if it's a particular event that we are talking about, if it's an annual meet for some company, if it's an annual dinner for some company, then they want it to be like a 3-day thing. They want games, they want memorable engagement ideas. They would want you to do creative things within the frame of 3 days. And the setups always matter a lot. So you will have like a corporate setup, corporate event. Then second would be your conference kind of setup. So you get to explore a lot with the stage design in a conference, depending on the brief. If the client is really flexible, then and create and supports a lot of a fluid creativity, then they will allow you to go ahead and suggest designs that are very innovative and path breaking. For example, you can see that there are large LED screens added to it, but not in a rectangular manner. You have multiple elements hanging around the stage. These are all the elements that are designed by somebody sitting behind a table, and they had to visualize the entire composition in one set, and they had to get it like constant revisions on these as well. So the idea of composition, what we learn in architecture, applies really, really effectively in these scenarios. Third is the example of a car launch, but this also reminds me of the Auto Expo. I think it's going to happen in January soon, and many of you will be visiting those. So just take 2 minutes out and try and look at the stall designs of all the Auto Expos, because brilliant architects, sit behind their computer and invest tons of hours to design those, and then the fabrication team takes over and fabricates it. But what we go and see is just like, we see like a complete setup, and it looks so amazing and accumulated that it doesn't stand out. Anyways, a really great quote, I just can't remember the name who said it, once said that you only see design when it fails. So the moment that you are able to point something out, it means that it's not working. But as soon as like everything looks in a picture, that's great. I mean, the job has been done completely. Everything looks seamless. So that's the entire idea. So this image particularly is from an Audi car launch. And in these car launches, the clients are really sensitive about the car that is being launched, and rest other of the models as well. So here, the king of your show is your car. You have to make the car the showstopper. And how do you do that? How to make like a non-living thing? So you design your entire content, you design your entire look and theme around it, and you deliver on it, because your car, the car that needs to be launched, has to be celebrated. It cannot be sidelined by some large LED or some person who is speaking over it. So these kind of briefs that you get, and these are really interesting to read, explore, and then figure out to how to take it ahead. So you can have, like, there's no foundation. You can just take any road, and you never know what they'll end up liking, and you'll end up liking, to be more important. Last but not the least is an exhibition design. I particularly chose this image because you can see the interesting structure that has been created. It was all fabricated, I can tell you, and it was designed again on a software. The renders were generated just like we used to make our structures, and then we used to make renders. The similar condition, you just make a very real looking render, you show it to the client, they approve it, whether they like it or not. They will add some suggestions, they will reduce some of the ideas, and then post that. You get to see the production of this interesting thing, and you can actually be a part of it as well, because the fabrication team requires constant support from the designer. And then this will, and the day when it will be put into exhibition, you will be really proud at what you have created. And we have this picture particularly, I think, is from some foreign country, but we do have these kind of fabrication done in India as well for the exhibition. So it's like nothing is impossible in this case. The types of government events, I'll tell you, because no, these are just so I have to be a bit biased here. Corporate events are more fun. Government events, because these are bound by a lot of protocols and guidelines. So meanwhile, you're trying to figure out that innovative idea and that one right idea that clicks, you will find yourself swimming around the protocols and guidelines that come along with it, and it sometimes, I feel, restricts the flow of creativity that could have been achieved. So for the government event, you could have international conventions, you can have international conferences. This particular conference, which was ISA, International Solar Association, it was the second assembly, and it was done by my firm only. I particularly was not a part of this, but I saw it, that they had delivered it, and it was a brilliantly executed event. And I saw the deck to it, and they prepare like customer journey, the visitor's journey, from start point to the end point, catering to all the particular specific needs, because a lot of big names would be coming to that, including the Prime Minister, not only of India, but other countries as well. So the security protocol that goes along with it, you have to understand that, you have to give pathway for its execution and soft execution. And of course, everything has to be treated with respect, and all the security that is required for them. So these get, honestly, I mean, conferences are interesting, but the knack for people who are really into creativity will feel a little late. They'll have to sit back a little, and the logistic part of these events are really rigorous. So also, interesting fact, once you jump into an event industry, you cannot stick to one particular field, at least for the starting part when you're getting trained, because we are not, as architects, we are not trained event managers. So you will be trained, and you will be asked to think in an innovative manner. You have to be on your toes, because you will be running around with all these logistics that you have to take care of. You'll have to do all sorts of jobs so that you understand point A to point B and point B to point C of your execution of your event. And that really, honestly, I'll tell you, because I have been through the same process, I'll tell you that grows you, like that helps you grow into a much mature person who can take things in control. And eventually you'll be, getting more and more confident about the decisions that you'll be making, with whether it will be personal or it will be professional. So all support for the training for this. The second kind of event that the government organizes are some of these melas. This is a picture of particularly of Suraj Kund Mela. This was also done at least 2 years we have been doing Suraj Kund Mela, the firm I was associated with. And a lot of things comes along with it. You can do the decoration ideas, then you have artist management that you have to do, all the artists that are coming. There are big names who are also coming, and then they have their another list of requirements. So the idea is you have to be on the top of the things, and you have to take care of all those branchings that is coming out of it, and yet execute an amazing event at the end of the day. And you can't lose your calm of course doing those. I think I have already discussed pretty much the role of architecture that exists in event industry or the techno-creative industry, but I'll just brush it up again. That the most important thing is the visitor experience and the journey planning. So whenever you are assigned a brief, the first thing that you have to do is ultimately imagine that the visitor is your king, and how you're going to make him experience that entire event, like the entire, if it's a one-day event, the entire day, how he's going to feel, like what his emotion graph would be once he steps into the zone of the event that is happening. What do you, because that's in your control as an event manager, that's in your control. You can totally decide and make that person feel the way you want to, by planning the entire setup around them, or the activities around them in that manner. So visitor experience and journey planning, which is exactly the same in, I think, the urban scenario with urban scenarios that we used to do. We have like a point of we have a common point where people are coming, how they're going to experience the spaces around, how they're going to see the roads that are coming out of it, and the buildings that are going to look like. So this, you will feel a little bit of the journey experience in itself is a common thing, but I think the scale sort of changes in architecture and the event industry. Look and feel of the setup is really important. Like I was saying, it has to create that emotional stir. It has to make you feel something, and that something should be, that something is in your control, which you can totally change. And you have to, if you want to make your audience go through a roller coaster of emotions, that is also possible. You just have to plan ahead for that, and just pack your pitch presentation with ideas which support that kind of roller coaster emotion. Moving on, you'll experience sciences of architecture that will be used. These are really important, especially when you have some performance going on, and you want your audience to have the best experience. So I remember when we were in college, we had to do like an amphitheater project. We had to design an amphitheater project, and I remember learning those specifics at that time, but as soon as I learned them and I presented them, I forgot about them. So when I came here and I had to do the same thing again, I was initially under the impression that, oh, I know this and I'll be able to do this. And once I sat down to actually do it, because this time it was not only going to be on the sheets, but it was actually going to be performed on an amphitheater by a performer who wanted his audience to have the best experience. You have to make all those calculations correct, and you have to be precise, and you can't let one mistake or one approximation happen. So this time I would say was the one where I actually learned it, because I got into the nitty-gritty of the things. So you will, just like I said, you will get to the implication part of it, and that is going to change your life completely, because you will be seeing things and executing things that you'll be designing, and on a fast level that will make you feel something that you have been a part of this, and you cannot make your customer let down. Like you cannot tell at the last moment that I am so sorry that the second row cannot hear your music because the arrangement has been like a little bad. So all these things needs to be checked first. Hence comes the science of architecture in picture. Last but not the least is the composition and the content. Of course, what you're going to show to your audience, because as architects, we have had a very good graphical background as well. So I think we all have a sense of composition and content, what goes along with it. And this is exactly what required. It's a very content heavy and graphic heavy industry. So those large LEDs that you see on those award functions and events, they need to have some graphic or content running on them. You need to have change of content running on them. Just a very quick example, whenever you're watching Oscar or any award function, you see those nominations coming up, and then you see those names of the actors and pictures of those actors, and you see those those transitional musics or video clips. But did you ever imagine who was making those? So those all are prepared like a week prior to the event happening, and then you have rehearsals going on, and that needs to be on point at the day of execution. So the content and the graphic team is really, really, critical to an entire event thing as well, which I think is for architecture as well, because the visual aesthetic is also important at the end of the day. We used to make our sheets which would appeal to the jury. We used to make our sheets which would, we should be confident about that, the kind of work that we have put out. And I think this is where the overlap happens. Moving on, I'll just all the pointers that we have discussed prior, I'll quickly take you through small renders so that it's easy to understand what exactly I was talking about. So about the visitor experience and journey planning, this is the render of a stage design for Sparkle. And these kind of renders you have to produce from from a person sitting, from a person standing, a point of view, how it will look from the top if you look at it. So it's the bird eye view that is there. And I think these are pretty much similar, and the kind of work that we have been doing. So, and the softwares that we have been learning. Speaking of softwares, if you are good at 3D, you know how to work around Lumion. If you are good at 3ds Max, perfect, because most of the industry uses 3ds Max or Maya for the 3D renders that they produce. So you will have an upper hand. Otherwise, basic SketchUp or any 3D software could do as well to turn around, because we have like designated teams here. So depending on your choice and your skill set, you can just proceed to join a team. Then we will discuss about the visitor's journey. This is how you can, explain to your client or to the audience that what the audience is going to feel like. So they enter from this particular area, and then you have your reception planned here. Then you go to a particular tunnel, which is designed in a certain manner that makes you feel something. And it sort of states those emotions. And then post that, you immediately put them to the area where you have the engagement activities. So before entering your actual event area where the stage and the setup, etc., is done, you always have a small pre-function area planned around it, where you have engagement activities, or the breakup area, you could say, where breakout area, where you could say people can come out, have tea breaks, etc. So you will have to make them understand the journey that the audience is gonna go through, and post that you have the entire setup that is there, the stages and inside the ballroom. I think this is the plan of some hotel, and this is usually how we plan out things. In case of exhibitions, you'll just have a plain, land, and that will be shown with all those renders that has come up. Of course, adding to these renders, you first start with a layout. So your AutoCAD skills would come in handy, and you'd be able to, with the given architectural background, you'd be able to do them quicker than the people who's not capable of doing that. So they'll give you a sketch or something, and then you make it on AutoCAD, and then you make it with the correct dimensions, real life dimensions, and correct ceiling heights, because people really, that one person really need to stand there and deliver something. So your dimensions needs to be correct, and everything needs to be precise, because this will happen in real time soon. And believe me, a problem or a difficulty in a dimension on paper, which is even as small as 4-inch or 5-inch, can become a big blunder at the time when you're executing it. So that needs to be kept in mind as well. This is the tunnel, I think, that was discussed in the previous slide. So you can have these kind of renders which explain from a human perspective level, that when the person enters, they're going to see these large, colorful walls, and then they can have this timeline, some sort of timeline is running. They can have interactive LEDs there. And I think the floor is also interactive projection mapping. So these kind of renders needs to be there to just take the client on the journey before, virtual journey of the event, before the event actually executed. This is the reception area, maybe how it's going to look like when a person's standing in front of it. You put it in the scenario. It's just the renders and montages that we used to do, the same thing, but just the setup and the requirement has changed. Last but not the least, I think with the stage designing comes a lot of other responsibility that you can see. You have to do like a capacity planning, because if you're planning inside a certain capacity inside an auditorium, and you have, just for the sake of showing it, shown that your capacity will fit, without taking all those offsets and islands correct, then at the time of execution your capacity will not fit, and then the entire thing will go into a fit. So while you are planning all those things, you have to take care of that human space that is required in between, and you have to work really, really hard on these sitting layouts. You have to make those technical layouts again, which consists like a separate layout for sound, separate layout for light, and a separate layout for projection / content, what will be going there. You'll have to mark out where on the design plan that where those things are gonna come, where gonna layout screens are gonna be, where your delay speakers are gonna be. These are the few terms and elements that you'll pick up as soon as you'll start working for this industry. And believe me, it's really, really interesting, because you'll be doing it for the first time. You'll be making mistakes on paper, I hope, and then you'll be correcting it and working again, and at the end, when you'll see it all come alive, it's a very overwhelming feeling, and you will be it makes really, really it will make you really happy that you have been part of something huge, and you planned that thing out there, and it has been executed, and people are really enjoying about it, except for the spectacle that carries along with it. So this much for the stage thing. Stage designs actually keep on varying according to the requirement of client again. So some of them want like a larger setup, and the first the first brief that you'll always get is, we want to see something new, and you will have to produce new each and every single time. Even the options that you go to them with should have all the different ideas which can be interesting and they have not seen before, or are original to their core. Mindful of the sciences of architecture, just like I discussed, that while making those sheets for colleges, you can maybe just copy paste an image, or you can just make those diagrams on your parallel bars. But this time you will have to actually, you have to make a person stand on the stage, and their voices, their performance needs to reach the person even sitting at the back. And you also don't know what kind of facilities the company would be able to provide you. So on maybe sometime on limited resources, you will have to deliver a good project, and you cannot compromise on the quality of the performances that are going to happen. So being mindful of these theories and ideas, and of course anthropometry always comes in handy. I'm really glad that I was made to learn this subject, and because of this I was on top of a lot of things, and it helps you understand one-on-one interaction and the natural human spaces in between while designing. Then you have composition and layout. This is basically the summary of the entire thing that we have just discussed, and it just talks about the experience, and if you're like provided like a space, how your small elements are gonna be placed, because it cannot have just one big thing, but it will have small broken elements, so that the interest level is maintained for the entire audience through the journey. And just like you can see, the person here is entering from the tunnel, that will make you feel something. You go hit the registration, then you have your job done here, and then the person is allowed to either roam around this side or that side, and then you have these small little elements of engagement present, so that people can explore it on their own, and would not get bored throughout their entire journey. This much for the architecture thing that I was discussing, and we'll move on to discovering the correlated industries with the event industry. So just like I discussed, event industry, you have like a particular set of brief that you are going to do, and you have a very limited time frame to deliver it. But when we'll be discussing all these new journeys and industry that are correlated with these. I think people who audience also, like if you have somebody who has like very creative nag to things, you will really enjoy this section. And believe me, people are really looking out for those people who really understand these kind of things and are really interested to take this up as a career opportunity as well. So the three things that we'll be discussing are projection mapping on structures. We'll be discussing the 360-degree projections, or dome projection. And the third is also like a projection mapping only, but the scenario is completely different, which I'll be explaining through a video. This particular image is from a Prime Minister Museum, which is in New Delhi, and just a newly constructed and inaugurated building last year only. And this is one of the images that we did during the testing of it. This was a project I briefly worked on as well. And unfortunately, we've not been able to deliver it yet, so I won't be able to share the videos or the work that we had done so far because of the NDA. But just imagine that how much effort that has gone into this, because the structure is very unique, as you can see. And I do remember while working on it, we're facing a lot of difficulties in getting the correct image, because it was getting distorted on the wings on the either side, and then we were not getting clear picture because of the color of the structure. So the hiccups that we were encountering, and at the end of the day, we still managed to get something really good, and like a great spectacle out of it. And of course, the lighting, etc., has to be kept in manner. The laser lighting has to be kept in mind, and all of these things together to build up a show, and which will which people can go and watch and have fun, and these kind of works and constant revisions that go on it. So this is one example. I'll quickly show you a video on projection mapping as well. It's a short video. You will understand the exact usage and how creatively you can use it to play with people's mind, and of course make them have a really good time. So I'll just put the video on.
3D projection mapping is the merging of real and virtual worlds. Basically, in a nutshell, we project 3D models onto their real-life counterpart, and then magic happens. We're at a really nice point in 3D mapping. We're like in film in 1915. How do you acquire the 3D information of the building, of the landscape? We use LiDAR scan or photogrammetry. Photogrammetry is basically taking hundreds of photos of your canvas, and the software will create a 3D model of that canvas. It's all about writing the right story with the canvas you were given. Mapping the moon is probably the holy grail of mapping, but that's not going to happen for a while. If we ever map the moon, it will happen at one point. What should be the first image ever mapped on the moon?
So just giving an overall gist of the video, I think you must have seen the creative knacks that you have to figure out, and every structure needs to be treated in such a manner that it celebrates the structure in particular, and brings out those small creative, just like the Sydney Opera House that you have seen. It was used like a bed where somebody was curling up, and you could see the waves going on. So of course you can't do that if you're doing that on India Gate. So you have to treat it with the structure. And we in India as well, just like I said, it's a global phenomena. And in India, we have multiple structures that have those amazing light and sound shows that are going on them, and projection mapping is happening. And so much of creative content is being generated on a daily basis for that. Second, moving on, is a 360-degree immersive VR exhibition, where you basically create like a entire room filled with projection mapping, and the floor also has the mapping on it. And one of its example has already happened in Australia as well, which was for Van Gogh as well. But this particular image is from the event that happened in Las Vegas. And the people here also got VR sets to wear, and so that they can bring, the exhibition live. So there's never a boundary where you want to freeze the technology. You can just take one, take another one, mix them, and just create something new and beautiful out of it, which the world has not seen yet. And people are really, really waiting for those ideas to come up. The last, before we jump into the last video, which is really close to my heart, I really love that. And it's also projection mapping, but it is about sort of user experience, if I would say. So in all these manners, you are watching projection mapping, but you're not literally being a part of it, you could say. So the third one becomes more like an interactive projection mapping. And you will see how cleverly the Team Labs company, they have done this in Japan, and how cleverly they have mixed and those ideas, those beautiful emotions, and they'll be stirring a lot of emotions in you. And if you're a person who appreciates these kind of things, you will really find it to be, interesting and enticing. So, basically a restaurant where you come and experience your food, but then have this taken and notches by adding projection on that. Pretty much it. I hope you guys felt something that when I saw it for the first time, I was like, I want to do something like that. And I am still, not able to achieve that, but I could say that maybe I'm on the way towards it. The perfect summary at the end, we would like to, correlate all these three industries together, which is your architecture industry, your event industry, and the techno-creative industry as well. And I think the conclusion that I drew in the end was that the audience experience always remains at the top. I remember one of the webinars that happened on this portal only was given by Subarna Sadhu, and she talked about user experience. And I believe the audience experience and user experience are not, very different. And at the end of the day, it's only about making people, relish what they are seeing and or using. For that matter, and making them feel at the top of the world. And if you can deliver that job, and you can use all these means available, which is your designing skills, you can use the most latest technology available, and you can have a amazing running logistic backed up behind you, you can achieve or execute an amazing event if you have these three things placed together, and if you have any little knowledge of all these three things. Nothing can stop you from delivering a good visual spectacle out there for your audience. Last but not the least, what's in for us? So just like I discussed that you will be, You'll have a lot of creative and challenging briefs that will be handed over to you to crack within a given time frame, and then you will have to come up with clear, beautiful ideas that hit that right spot. You will have to be an idea generator. You will have to have those. You'll have to keep on researching, because it involves a lot of staying at the top of the game and learning about which country has launched what, and what are they doing, what point they are at, and just trying to up your game and maybe go beyond them. Third would be the quick execution and knowledge of the production and fabrication, which again comes handy to us. I think these all 4 pointers which I have mentioned here are it already gives like an advantage to the people who have an architectural background. So that's why it's easier for us to get the industry to understand it. And if you have that creative spark that is that needs flaming, I mean, and if you're ready to work really, really hard, I mean, this is the place that you belong, and you can for sure go and explore all these notions. Last but not the least, multiple job titles and roles. There are a lot of job titles which I explored when I joined this industry, which I didn't know existed. There is somebody called a show caller who handles the show when it is being executed. There is somebody who's a light manager. There is somebody who handles light. There is somebody who handles projection. And these all things, I mean, you could see, you will never figure out the jobs in different positions, but you'll see the entire thing as a cumulative part. But once you start working towards it, you will know that no, this is your calling, and you want to do that, and you want to do this, and so hence you will have multiple of options to explore from. And I think that's a really, really great place to start with. With this, I think I'll be closing the today's webinar. And if anybody has any questions regarding the any of the slides that I've presented, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Aaliya, for the wonderful presentation. So I think we now open the floor for questions and comments. If there's any participant who wants to ask any question, they can either just unmute themselves and ask, or they can put it in the chat box, whichever they're more comfortable with. But to begin with, I think, so Aaliya, I have 2 questions from architect Tanvi, who had to unfortunately leave the presentation early. So her first question is that what are the starkest dissimilarities between architecture and event design that you sort of realized or faced?
Okay, so I'll just answer the first question, and maybe then we can go to the next one. The starkest similarity that
Dissimilarity.
Dissimilarity.
The starkest yes.
Okay. So the dissimilarity is funny, because I had a hard time covering up for that, because in architecture you somehow have a laid back attitude that you're designing something, and then you have multiple options of correcting it, and then the entire project is executed and you have time in your hand, so you take that as a liberty. But when you hit the event industry, the biggest thing that you are thrown on your face is a big clock, and that you are running against the time. You literally be handed a brief 72 hours prior to an event of, let's say, 500 people, and you have to deliver it at the end of the day, because the invites have already gone out, and you cannot do a shabby job. So I mean, what I learned was, as an architecture student also, I was keen to working for more hours, but here I could feel that my 1 hour could produce more work than I and it had to produce that kind of work, because I had to meet the deadline. And it somehow makes you like that. You will become so time efficient that you will be doing things so quickly, and you will be arriving at correct decisions and correct that you will be seeing 4 things, and you're like, no, we are going ahead with this. So that kind of confidence also builds along with it, and which I think is a little relaxed and at ease in the case of when we are actually practicing architecture.
I see. So before the second question, I would ask if there's any question from the audience. I do especially encourage the students to get their doubts clarified from the speaker, because she's present here and she would be more equipped to answer the questions that any student might have. And otherwise, if there's any audience member who wants to ask a question, then please feel free to go ahead. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, hi. This is
Yes.
Karna. Yeah, I have a question for you. So you mentioned that one of the major aspect that you do is deliver emotions through your designs. So is there a process that you follow for this? And in continuation to the same question, is there any aspect of psychology involved, like psychology and design, to create that delight or elicit an emotion?
Okay, thank you for your question, Subarna. So the emotion part that I was talking about, we are mostly briefed about making the audience feel good relative to what kind of event it is. For example, if you are going with a car launch, you want the audience to feel really, really empowered and in awe of the car. So you have to make the car your hero. Second example would be if you are doing a corporate event where some dinner, annual dinner or an annual convention is happening. At that time, the CEO of that company needs to be made like the main person, and the employees. So you have to celebrate 300 people or 500 people at the same time. So the kind of emotion that you want to make them feel would be different from what you want to make them feel at the car launch. This time you want to make them feel emotional and connected to each other. They want to feel that bonding and group dynamics when they are together. So the emotions vary, of course, as per the events that are going to happen. Given that a particular process that we follow, I won't say that there are, training for these kind of associations, but somehow with experience. When we were working for it, we were guided by our seniors who have already worked for, 50, 60, 70 events, and they understand the kind of audience that they are expecting. It also depends on some of the demographics that we get, that what is the age group of the audience, because we have to plan activities along that. What is the what is the background of the audience that we are getting. So we all also have like a categorization of audience in that sense. So not a particular process in the sense of getting an emotional feedback out of it, but like more to do with experience and what we have already done in past, and just jotting it down. And at the end of the day, the idea is just to make them feel wow and let them go wow. The second question which you asked was the role of psychology. Again, I would say yes, it is very, very evident, and it would be beautiful if we execute this 100% all the time. But I would be really, really honest, and on a bar of 1 to 10, we are usually able to hit the emotional, banner by some 9 or 8.5, I would say. So you're never 100% there, and sometimes something is left, and you try and make that better in the next one. But I think the sensitization that you're talking about in the psychology, the particular work that I worked for, I think we were missing a little bit on that. And people who can bring those in their designs and work more towards it would be really amazing, which we do see. For example, the tea house example that I showed, I mean, that really does something to me every time I watch it. And the designers have sort of tick that box, and they get that 10 out of 10. So I believe that they did practice those psychology and design guidelines.
Thank you, Subhana, for the question, and thank you for the answer earlier. So do we have any other audience member who would want to ask a question or just give in your comments regarding the subject itself? So if not, then I guess we'll take the last question again from Architect Tanvi, her second question, and then we can probably wrap the webinar up. So you've partially answered the question. So I'll just basically keep that aside. Like besides the breakneck speed or the increase in speed compared to architecture, what are what was the biggest challenge that you have faced for example, when you shifted from architecture to this industry?
Okay, so biggest challenge, I would say, both in terms of positive and negative sense, is the speed that I discussed. I mean, it was really new for me, and I really had to keep running around to match that, because these people are really accustomed with it and they have been doing it for tons of years. So they're really good with it. The second thing would be constantly getting those creative ideas. I mean, you have to be on your creative clock constantly. For that, you need to constantly keep on reading. You need to constantly be on top of the technical game, the creative game, what is happening in the market, and all sorts of those kind of things. And it sort of helps you in time management, along with just getting a grasp of multiple things at the same time. So I believe that my multitasking skills have gone up since I have worked there, and I'm more agile when it comes to shifting from one design concept to the other one. So like one day I'll be working on something which is very ethnic or historic oriented or something, and the next day I'll be working on something very techy, and I'll be delivering, I'll have to deliver good on both of these. So this constant shift is also very was very new for me, because I was not used to constantly shift between these this quickly, for that matter. These two things, apart from that, the softwares were mostly same, or like just a few were new, and you are any day more than welcome to learn them as well, because with our background it's really easy to understand. Let's like basically 2D and 3D that we juggle between here as well. So pretty much that.
I do have like 2 or 3 more questions from Arctic, where I initially missed them because they were
Yeah,
sent to me
Tushar, can I
directly.
say something?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So please go ahead.
Tushar, can I say something?
Yes, sir. Sir, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Hello.
On format. So I'm encouraged to hear you, that we have some of us who are venturing into this new arena. And I thank you for this excellent presentation, and encourage all the parties and be on this platform and share their thought. And we at Periyar School would keep on pursuing this. Thank you. Thank you very much to all the participants, and Aaliya, for your presentation. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. So I think we have like 2 ending questions from Arctic there. So the first is about the skin material. How is the exoskeleton covered for weatherproofing? And what better are we using to make like waste management easy in the event industry compared to, let's say, in the architectural industry? So in terms of, he's asking in terms of like materials which are wasted at dismantling of a setup, because these are more or less temporary setups, right? So how is that being handled?
Can you repeat the first question, Tushar?
So the first is about the materials. So how is the exoskeleton covered for like weatherproofing? Let's say if it's an open to air exhibition or an event. So then how are the materials decided for weatherproofing?
Okay.
Because these are always
So,
very technology based, right? So there would be a lot of circuitry involved as well. So how is that being handled?
Yeah. So I'll take a very close to heart example, which is the PM museum that we're working on, open structure again. There's this certain distance that you have to maintain between the projectors, all the technical equipment that goes along with the structure that has to go there. So you don't necessarily do anything to the structure. You have a lot of wiring that you can do underground. With the projectors, you always create like a projector box that comes along with it, which is called projector casing. And we do have tough time creating those designs, because all the models that are used are usually different and differ from project to project. Sometimes you would need a very hardcore projector, sometimes you would need a very lighter version, and the shape and size changes, so the casing for the same changes, and you always get those along with the projector. With those in position, with the casing in position, you don't have to worry about the rains or the lighting or anything other, and they also protect it from the dirt and everything else. You won't believe, but we do encounter weird moments where you won't be expecting. For example, even in PM museum, so we have those moving heads attached for the lighting purpose. So, and we already provided a casing to it, so that it's a transparent casing in an oval shape, so that the light is protected and it could stay on for a longer time. You forget the context that it is placed in, and it's a very natural friendly position. We have monkeys coming every day, and they just go and probably sit on the top of that and they puncture it. So you encounter a problem, and then you arrive at a new solution, and then you change it. So the process of, material choosing is also based on this only. So you make some solution, and if it's not working, then you chuck it out and then you come up with another one. The second thing that was about the conscious selection of materials is that, to be honest, people so far have gone, with regular materials like MDF, etc. for the fabrication processes. The stages are done by that only, and you have those PVC materials that comes handy. The recycle angle to it would be that once the setup is taken down, the metal, if you're making like a metal frame or molding out of it, is molded and used in something else. The MDF is unfortunately discarded and used in some, it can't be used because if it's chopped in a particular shape or design, you necessarily do not need that exact design. So maybe you can take out some samples from it, but you will have to unfortunately leave the rest. So that's why we try and make use of less plastic and more of those materials which are naturally available. Yes, it is bigger on the pocket because of the materials, but at the end of the day, if it's getting biodegradable and you are not using plastic, then it's still better. So that goes for the material thing. The rain cover for exhibition that he was talking about, you were talking about, Humair. For exhibitions, usually it's the conscious decision made by the authority who's planning the exhibition only. So now that you mentioned, I have an anecdote from the recent event that we did. It was a statue launch, and we had a projection mapping to be planned at the night on that as well. And the entire day it rained, and we had like a setup where we had to, unveil the statue in front of the audience, and there were some other things that were planned along with lights and everything. And because of the rain, because we did not, could not predict that the rain would happen at that time, but entire clothes with which the structure was covered was just flying here and there and everything. So the next time when we did it for something else, we made sure that the curtains were in position, irrespective of, bound with trusses, and then you have like a proper showdown which you needed, so that you can eradicate all those natural factors that are coming in picture. So I would only add to this that we are still, there are people who have mastered this, but we are also like still learning and towards the process of getting it mastered. So it's more like a hit and trial method, but it's always better to be prepared for all these things. And for the interior exhibitions that happens, of course, like if it's interior, then you don't have to take care about all those things, except the fire norms and the emergency exits, etc. These needs to be taken care of. So that much for the material. I hope it answers your question.
Okay, thank you for the question, Sumer, and thank you for the wonderful answers. And I think with this, we can close the webinar for today. So I do definitely thank Aaliya for taking out time for us and for bringing this new sort of option that we have in terms of for the students in terms of career, as well as this exciting sort of new avenue that is being opened up for designers as well, and also for bringing the wonderful experiences as examples. And I also do thank all the participants, especially Mehta sir, who is also incidentally one of our mentors, for taking up time for us and for attending the webinar today. With this, I would like to bring the webinar to a close. Please have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.